Right now, Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
Thank you, Ken. Back at it again on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. I'm your host, Josh Taylor, and we have quite a bit to discuss. Pirates, for the record, have won 5 of their last 8. They beat Minnesota tonight at PNC Park 3-0 behind another excellent start by Mitch Keller. And if you've been paying attention since the beginning of May, Mitch Keller in his last 6 starts has been absolutely dominant and absolutely tremendous, and we'll break that down. Plus, is there more attention around the Pirates? And are they turning this thing around? Are they in position to really make a run? We'll discuss those things. We'll talk about a few other things as well with my guest. She joins me from the KDKA Radio AM 1020 newsroom. Susie Cool is here. Susie, you and I have been talking quite a bit of Pirates whenever we're on this show together, and we got a lot to talk about. I think the last couple times we've talked Paul Skeens, we've talked Jarrett Jones, we've talked Bailey Falter. But we got to talk about Mitch Keller. His last 6 games, he's given up 5 runs in his last 6 starts combined, over 39 2/3 innings. And he struck out 35. I think he has, 7 walks in that span with only 1 home run allowed. Is he their hottest pitcher right now? It looks like it.
What's great about Mitch Keller is the fact that we're all excited about Jarrett Jones and Paul Skeens because of the heat that they bring.
I was just going to get into that discussion because you hear people toss that word around. They say this guy's an ace, that guy's an ace. And one thing I've learned over the years, and this is something Jack Zorencic, former baseball executive, former Pirates front office guy, told me a long time ago. He said a team sees a pitcher as an ace when you can hand that guy a ball. And if you're in a losing streak, he stops the losing streak. If you're on a winning streak, he extends, or if you're on a winning streak, he extends the winning streak. Basically, you give him the ball, and he is not going to let you down when you need him to perform. And Mitch Keller, if nothing else, he might not be as hard-throwing as Paul Skeens. He might not be as overall dominant as Jarrett Jones as far as maybe a 2-pitch mix, but he's been nothing but steady and reliable for the last month and a half, and you're seeing that now. And teams need that. Rotations need that. I don't care how good your payroll is. I don't care where you are in the standings. If you got a pitcher like that, you're in pretty much any situation, because if you're in a middle of a bad situation, you can turn it around, and if you're on a roll, he keeps it going.
And I think what the Pirates are running into right now with their starting rotation is that they have a problem, but it's a really good problem to have. They have 4 starters that are very, very consistent, and each of them brings something different. You have Jarrett Jones and Paul Skeens who bring the heat, but then you look at Mitch Keller and Bailey Falter who bring a little bit more of the slow stuff, a little bit more of the changeups, the sweepers, the sliders, and they use their repertoire more so than Paul Skeens and Jarrett Jones, who rely on that heat. So that's a really good problem for the Pirates to have, and Mitch Keller is leading that charge, but he's almost doing it silently. I don't want to say silently because clearly everybody knows the stats that he's putting up right now, but whenever you're following Jarrett Jones and Paul Skeens, sometimes you get forgotten about. But don't forget that Mitch Keller is the ace of this staff, and he is the mature one on this staff as well. That's why the Pirates handed him a huge deal before the season started.
And he's the veteran guy in this rotation for all intents and purposes. It's not even a technical measure. It's not even a matter of perspective. He is the veteran guy of this group. He started a couple opening days, and that was something that, by the way, he had to earn, because he didn't always have that distinction. Derek Shelton has said it each of those times. You've earned this right. You've earned this honor. We've put a lot of faith behind you, and you've rewarded us. He said that on more than one occasion. So when you get into what Mitch Keller's doing, given the faith the Pirates have put into him, maybe it's not that surprising. 412-575-2600. That's the number to call us, or you can shoot us a tweet at Josh Taylor HD. We will take a break. When we come back, we got our tweet of the night. Plus, we're taking your phone calls, and we're answering your tweets. Stick around. Welcome back. Time for our GMC Sierra tweet of the night. It's from the Pirates. June 7th. That's about 20 years ago today. 2004. Pirates selected Neil Walker with the 11th pick in the draft, and then immediately 1 year later to the day, they select Andrew McCutchen once again with the 11th pick in the draft. And we know what those two guys went on to do not too long after that. The rest, as they see, is history. Granted, Andrew McCutchen leaves the Pirates, now back with the Pirates. Neil Walker leaves the Pirates, now back as part of the broadcast team. So some things just come full circle. 412-575-2600. That is the number to give us a call, or you can give us you can shoot us a tweet at Josh Taylor HD. I'm going to immediately call this our number one Cochran call of the night because it's a legend we're about to go to here. It's Chuck in Uniontown. Chuck, you're on the Nightly Sports Call.
Sure. Thanks. For Josh, Susie, the upcoming schedule, the next 12 games, including these 2 against Minnesota, with the Reds, Rockies, or with the Cardinals, Rockies, or Reds. What do you think? Do you think 7-5 with an emphasis on 4-2 in those 6 games in the Central Division? But we can't, above all, we can't get wiped out on the road. We can't drown in the Mississippi River, nor get caught in the Colorado Avalanche either. Thanks.
No, Chuck's on it. This is one of those philosophies I've had for a long time, Susie. If you're going to be a playoff team, if you're looking at the schedule and wins and losses and how the numbers work, if you're going to be a playoff team, win your series at home, don't get swept on the road. It's a good way mathematically to put yourself in the playoffs. And with what Chuck's laying out there, that's kind of where the numbers go. And I'm not going to be one of those people that looks past teams. But when you're talking about a matchup maybe with the Rockies, a Cardinals team that had stumbled out of the gate, maybe they're starting to find their footing. They still wobble here and there. The Reds are what they are. They've been what they've been for quite some time. But I'm thinking the same thing Chuck is here because, like I said, you never want to look past the team or just assume things are going to go a certain way. But if you're going to try to put together something here, given the fact that this team entered tonight's game a game and a half out of a playoff spot, you got to start looking at opportunities to win series, which they have a chance to do tomorrow, by the way. If they win tomorrow against Minnesota, that'll be 3 series wins in a row at home, which I think is important. But now you start to put together a nice little roll here, a nice little rhythm, and a chance to maybe capitalize in those next 12 games Chuck was talking about, Susie.
I think the biggest challenge for the Pirates coming up is going to be that series, honestly, against the Rockies. And I only say that because when the Rockies came to PNC Park, they had not led a game all season. And that was, I think, like 31 or 32 games into the season. They set a major league record going into that game, okay? Then they were leading the Pirates going into the 9th inning. And the Pirates ended up losing that series. So that is the one series that I'm actually kind of nervous about, also because of the altitude out there at Coors Field. It just is a little bit different. The ball carries a little bit different. It's going to carry a lot further. But I mean, Chuck, looking ahead at the schedule, yes, of course, you have to take that into consideration. But in the back of Derek Shelton's mind, I'm sure he's thinking, I'm taking it one series at a time. And you have to look at some of the series that the Pirates have taken this season. I still think that they are possible playoff contenders with some of the teams that they beat. The Baltimore Orioles, they just took a series against the LA Dodgers. Those are 2 really good teams with really good players on them. So at least give them credit there. Let them take one series at a time. And hopefully this next 12-game stretch, they just continue the role that they're on. And
they took 2 out of 3 against the Braves in the home series before that. And that's a team that, in my estimation, in each of the last few years has been a World Series contender. So you're talking about 3 of not, if not the best, 3 of the best teams in this game that this Pirates team is taking series from. So all of it, you never want to get too hyped up or get too high with the highs and too low with the lows. But if you're looking at something to point to and say, can this team do it? Maybe those series are part of the evidence that, hey, when they put it all together, when they get the run support and the pitching does what it's been doing over the past couple weeks, it is more or less possible. Mike and Beaver, you're on the Nightly Sports Call.
Hey, JT. Hey, Sonny. How you guys doing? Thanks for taking my call.
Appreciate you.
I just wanted to talk about how underrated and unappreciated Mitch Keller has been throughout the season, innings pitched-wise, because he's saving our bullpen for our 2 youngest next aces coming up, and it's letting us go a little bit deeper. The only thing I would suggest that we do for this playoff run, if you want to say, if we would like to stay in contention, is to get another long arm, middle stretch bullpen guy, and we have to get a new first baseman, hopefully at the trade deadline, that can hit the ball.
Mike, you're either living in my head or you heard Susie and I talk last weekend, because that's exactly what we talked about that this team needed if they were going to make that push. They need help at first base, and they need, he says, 1 arm, Susie. I think they need at least 2, because granted, what we saw tonight from the bullpen, and this is worth pointing out, Aroldis Chapman Then Colin Holderman in the 7th and 8th innings, 3 up, 3 down for both. David Bednar faces 4 batters. He gets 3 out. So that's something you look at behind what Mitch Keller did and say that's what you want to see from this kind of pitching staff doing those kind of things.
However, unfortunately, that's not what we're always seeing from this bullpen. And that's where, you know, when Jared Jones was struggling a couple of weeks back before this start with the Dodgers, it was you and I that were talking, and we were saying, is he having these kind of fumbling starts because he gets out and his team gets an early lead, and maybe it's by 1 or 2 runs, but then he feels like he has to overpower his pitching to hopefully hold the other team off because he's afraid when his bullpen comes in because they weren't holding up their end of the deal. So it's great to see something like the bullpen, what they strung together today. However, I think we're right on this. There has to be another 1 or 2 arms that are put into that bullpen throughout the rest of this season in order to help the starters, because the starters are doing great. The starters, any starting rotation in Major League Baseball is jealous of what they are stringing together right now. And then I think the other problem that the Pirates need to address is first base. And I talked about Rowdy Tellez last week. He just wasn't doing it. And then I feel like every time I say that, all of a sudden the person begins to produce because Tellez has actually had a couple of hits this week and he hasn't looked so bad. But I still feel like that's a sore spot in the lineup for the Pirates.
Susie, you got a chance earlier in the season, not the MLB season, but the college season. You got to call the backyard brawl over at PNC Park between Pitt and WVU. I should say the base yard brawl. I think this is what they were calling it at that point. Pirates highlights against who do we talk about they face tonight? I think against the Twins, against Minnesota. Plus, we're going to talk about West Virginia and North Carolina. We'll have those highlights as well. Plus, we'll check in from Steelers OTAs talking about that training camp schedule that was released today. So all that's coming up during KDKA News at 11. I mentioned West Virginia and North Carolina highlights. We're going to show those coming up during KDKA News at 11. But I want to talk about that right now, Susie. I mentioned that before the break, and then I didn't realize we got Larry on the line. He wants to talk about WVU, too. Larry, you're on the Nightly Sports Call.
Oh, okay.
Hey, how you all doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good. Hey, listen, I just want to say, take a break from Pirate baseball. I love the Pirates. Go Bucks. Just on the Mountaineers, I'm a tremendous Mountaineer fan. And even though we lost tonight, and I'm really ticked off about it, I just had a question. We had a phenomenal year so far. I know we're playing tomorrow double elimination against Carolina, but my question is, even though Maisie, our coach of the baseball team, is phenomenal, he's done a tremendous job, and I respect him very much. I'm wondering, did he not make an error? Because to my knowledge, in college ball, you can issue a pass. You can walk someone. And I'm just wondering, woulda, coulda, shoulda. How's that sound, guys? I'll hang up and let you talk about it. Go Mountaineers.
Little game theory and strategy. That's a thought. And that Stevenson home run, man. Oh, and the Stevenson home run to tie it, that was a tough one. But the Honeycutt one that walked it off, that was a backbreaker. And per the record, that game was phenomenal. Kyle West, 2 home runs for West Virginia. I think he drove in 4 runs. He was incredible. That game was one of the better college baseball games you'll see all year as far as just the quality of play and the back and forth. But, Susie, that is one of those things that you've seen quite a bit here as far as minor league baseball, professional baseball at the major league level, and a little bit of college baseball too. It's one of those things we get into when we're talking about college coaches and some of the decisions they make with their pitchers and their arms. But, that's a tough way to lose one for West Virginia. That was rough.
I'm going to say this just because I did cover the backyard brawl, and Pitt head coach Mike Bell actually said about Randy Maisie, he's just super aggressive. So he's not going to just give somebody a free pass on the base paths. He's going to make his pitchers go right after people. So it doesn't surprise me that he wasn't like, hey, let's just pass this guy along. He's going to make his pitchers work for that walk, or he's going to make that batter work for that walk, or he's going to make his pitcher go at them. And he's just an aggressive type of coach. So that doesn't shock me that he wasn't just sitting there thinking, hey, let's just let this guy get to first base.
And it's double elimination, like caller mentioned. So they've still got a chance. They got to win 2 to get themselves, continuing to move on toward Omaha. But it does stand to reason that West Virginia, with a valiant effort today, another team with a valiant effort that I want to mention, IUP, their season came to an end today in the Division II College World Series. They reached the semifinal round, but they lost the second in that double elimination today. So congratulations to IUP on an excellent season. They fought hard the entire way, and we have seen some outstanding college baseball in this area. I am a huge college baseball fan, so to see the kind of results we're seeing it makes me happy just because I'm a college baseball guy. I got a chance to cover a #1 college baseball team in the land a decade ago at a former stop of mine. So to see something like this happen in this area, in this market, I think is really, really awesome. Really excited for what we're seeing here in the future. And Pitt's a program that I continue to keep an eye on. It continues to it's not making that meteoric leap, but it's just taking those stair steps, Susie, and they're working their way up.
The 2 games that I had the opportunity to work for Pitt were a lot of fun. I mean, one, you have the backyard brawl at PNC Park, and then another one they're facing against Penn State, and both of the games were run-roll games. So WVU was on the winning side of the backyard brawl, but Pitt was on the winning side against Penn State. So both really fun in their own regards and their own respects, but those were the first 2 college games I had actually ever watched at the Division I level. So that was pretty cool.
You're going to fall in love with the sport if you keep doing the way you're going. I'm just warning you now. For Susie Cool, for our producer Jeremiah Miller, and our team here at KDKA, I'm Josh Taylor saying thanks for watching, and we'll be back here tomorrow night on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.